So last we left our intrepid adventurers, they're in the middle of a fight with these dwarves. That it just sort of happened. It wasn't our fault. The place just exploded, and then there were dwarves. We were just passing by.
That sort of sounds like a dwarf fortress story. The place just exploded, and then there were dwarves.
Yeah.
Maybe there were dwarves, and then it exploded.
The causality usually goes the other way around. Dwarves show up, then everything explodes.
Well, that's pretty much what happened here, too.
Yep, that's true. So, well, I mean, we don't know that, technically. It could be that, the dwarves were searching out facilities with unsafe industrial practices to try and find them. Anyway, they blew it up. The fight. We'd put down all kinds of crazy zones in this hallway, this alleyway. And it was a total choke point. It was like those dwarves trying to get through here. It's ridiculous. They're bottled up.
Thank you.
No problem.
So right at the end of the session last time.
Thank you.
So right at the end of the session last time, they blew up the facility. Did they actually trigger it, or was it like some timer and they were just like, oh, it's time?
It was a triggered thing.
Okay, it was a triggered.
The leader saw that their escape wasn't guaranteed and they might die, and so he was like, screw it.
Yeah.
We're doing it, and everyone ducked, and so all the dwarves turtled up on the ground, and boom,
and Hank also turtled up, because Hank can speak Dwarvish because of his helm. He has a helm of languages, so he can understand all languages.
Yeah, and so he heard that, and I had him do an initiative off with the leader. Hank won, so I was like, yeah, you can also total defense on the ground.
But the rest of us got caught in the blast. And Serendipity, Van Golshar, Nora, Top of our Tower, Shepherd's Soul, Strides through Time actually went below 0 hit points.
Whoa.
Fortunately, I had a daily, which let me give her a healing surge as an immediate reaction to that. Anyway, so that was where things left off with the huge explosion. So the combat picked up again immediately as we started the next session. The minion ood all died in the explosion?
Yeah, all the apprentices died, and there was just the big, awesome-looking ood left.
Did any of the dwarves die in the explosion?
Yes.
I think some did, yeah.
One of the magic item user guys died, the ones that used a bunch of magic items, and a lot of them were bad. Well, they all took 40 damage, and the party all took 60 damage. So,
yeah. I went down to, I think, 16 hit points, so I was pretty badly hurt too.
Whoa.
But that's okay. I healed Serendipity, Van Golshar, Nora, Top of Tower, Shepherd's Soul, Strides through Time. And I think Aurora also threw a heal on someone, but I can't remember who.
Yeah, the heals broke out. I think she healed Croesus.
Yeah.
Hank didn't need healing because he used the ignore pain ability he has, which lets him. He takes a hit, and then he gets that however many temporary hit points he took on the hit, which is pretty interesting. So he took 40 damage. So he had 40 damage, but then he also had 40 temporary hit points, which is a lot of temporary hit points.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm familiar.
Yeah.
I played the defense game to Brian's chagrin.
So we're actually doing not too badly, and even though I've got like almost no hit points, I'm way off on the edge of combat at this point. It's all happening way over there. So I'm just playing support from a distance. I'm fine.
It's worth mentioning that when the smoke cleared, there's sort of they were on like a lower level because it's on a flying part of the city, and they were in a lower level of it. And the door that blew off, now there's like a sideways crater, like it's blown off the side of the flying city. This big kind of crater into the city, and then it's open sky on the other side. But it's not like, so the door that they were trying to go to is a hole to this crater.
Yeah.
But it's not like a straight drop off to the ground. It's like the curved bowl, right?
Yeah.
So a steep slope to a flat thing, and then a cliff off to the ground.
So as combat continued, we started getting people chucked off of there, of course, because now there's a thing to throw people off of. So obviously we're going to start throwing people off.
But they just roll down that hill.
Yeah.
So it's very unlikely they'll go over the edge.
Yeah, there is a lip, and you do have to make a saving throw if you like slide down the thing. But anyway. So yeah, the fight continued. Let me see now. What were some of the specifics of what happened? At this point, everyone was starting to get a bit low on hit points, especially the baddies. So it was starting to come time to just start popping these guys. We were like, okay, we'll take him down, that sort of thing. But also, they were trying to escape.
Well, the leader said something that only Hank could understand. At least at first, that was what was it? Not priority. What's the word I'm thinking of?
Oh yeah, objective.
Objective 1 succeeded. Objective 2 has failed. Focus on objective 2 before objective 3.
Yeah.
And
it seems like objective 2 was to kill that Ood who was in charge. It's not entirely clear, but that seems to be what they were focusing on.
Yes, well, pretty much right after that, they all started attacking him. So
this was the non-minion.
The super Ood. Yes, he
was really, really high level and tough, but he started out the fight with a lot of hit points taken.
Yeah,
so.
he was actually like a level. I think he was a level 20 solo.
Yeah, he was super tough.
But he was just in an explosion before this even started. And so he started the fight. He normally has 800 hit points, but he started the fight with 80.
Wow!
And,
he was already bloodied.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
He was well bloodied.
Yeah.
He was at
in
a
bad shape.
10th of his hit points. So yeah, John wasn't actually expecting him to survive the fight, but we'll get to whether he did or not.
John, you should throw your expectations out the window with this group. You know that.
Well, it's D&D in general. It's good not to expect.
No way the party will look at this one tiny minute detail and then they just zero in on it.
It was actually kind of fun as a GM to do because so I set up this guy and I actually didn't care if they saved him or not, which is actually a really fun place to be because I can be like, let's just make it really hard to save him. And then we'll see what happens.
Yeah. And if an opportunity comes along to have something cool happen, you don't have to worry about whether you can do that or not, because he might survive or not. It's just like, well, whatever. So yeah, the dwarves started dropping. I'm trying to remember what sort of cool things were done to kill dwarves. I think it was just like we were just hitting them at this point.
Yeah, one of the most notable things that happened is the Ood, the awesome Ood. I think he actually got to go right away. So the Ood have their brains, but they're in these protective orbs, and he holds it out, and he says, "You'll pay for that." And the leader dwarf just started screaming and writhing in agony, and all his veins were popping out, and
he was doing some sort of horrible torture spell on him that was like super agonizingly painful.
Right, and then he ended up vomiting like blackish green liquid onto his companions, and they all started screaming and writhing around.
Yeah, it was a real nasty thing that Ood did.
And the Ood was just like, just annoyed with their arrogance.
But then the Ood got knocked out the hole. How did that happen?
Then the leader got up.
Yeah, that's right.
No, it was the magic user guy. He did a mind blast thing using some kind of magic item, and he knocked him off the edge of the crater. Yeah. And he slid down and fell off, and no one could see what happened. But what I did was I was like, if you get knocked down that crater, well, first you get a save to avoid even falling off the edge. He failed that. Then you get a save to find you slide down, and I said, well, it's not like just being pushed off a cliff. So if you make your save, you're just laying at the bottom of the slope. If you fail your save, you're hanging off the end, right? So I rolled, and no one saw what was happening, but I rolled a 1.
Yeah.
And so
critically failed.
So I had it so that he fell off the edge, but he in some rocky rubble, his external brain got caught, and so he was hanging from the edge by his brain.
Yep,
man. This is super Ood.
Yeah, super Ood.
Yeah. He's like,
a level 20 solo.
This is the worst possible thing that could happen to an Ood.
Like, you get your eye popped out of the socket and you're hanging by your eye.
I hope that ocular nerve is strong.
Oh my god.
Yep.
But the party didn't really know this right away. They know he fell down there, so they wanted to check out what's going on, but
no one was right by the edge. Hank was nearest.
So he duped that stuff on the dwarves.
Yeah.
They went down.
Well, some of them. I don't know if any of them actually died from that. The leader was an elite, so he had quite a few hit points too.
Yeah.
But I mean I think that bloodied him. Like that was a bad attack on the dwarves, but it didn't. I don't know if it actually killed any of them. I think he just happened to hit ones that were high and just bloodied them.
But it was good because we killed him later, right? So.
But then the leader. No, the magic user guy. Yeah, the magic user dwarf. Mind blasted him, and that's when Croesus. I don't know if it was immediately after, but Croesus went up. Somehow, I don't remember just how this worked. Croesus went over there, and he knocked the magic guy, the magic dwarf, who had knocked the Ood off, and also slid down to the bottom. And then Croesus slid down there and held out his spear to help the Ood back up.
Okay.
And the Ood said thank you, and then turned to the magic dwarf and was like, bam, mind blasted him right off the edge of the cliff.
Yeah.
And then he just turned to Croesus, thank you, and started walking away.
Yeah.
Wow.
So we have somewhat of a alliance of like we're in the heat of the fight and we're on the same side kind of thing with this good guy. So it's a start.
So has it concluded?
Well, no, the fight continued up in the corridor. But as the fight continued, more and more of us wound up down the hole. I think Hank went down there next. I can't remember why.
Well, actually, there were still some dwarves alive, and that was when the fast, low-cost, ubiquitous, manufactured paralysis hoverers came. They're abbreviated as FLUMPH.
FLUMPH. You're familiar with FLUMPHs? It appears he is familiar with FLUMPHs from that reaction.
Yes. So they were like FLUMPHs, but they're like manufactured. They're more like they're constructs. They're like robots. They're made of like plasticky stuff, but they have tentacles because that's Ood like tentacle stuff, I guess.
Yeah.
Medium feta.
We're sharing around.
We'll share everything?
Yeah, you
I'll be
betcha.
right back with the meat sauce and some plates.
Thank you.
All right. There's onion rings on that one. That's
That
odd.
was unexpected.
Anyway,
So the FLUMPHs come hovering down, and they start repeating in alternating common and Ood. You will be taken to the nearest law enforcement agency. If you have not committed a crime, then you have nothing to fear.
Yeah.
You will be taken to the nearest law enforcement. And they just
John liked saying that over and over again throughout the fight.
Thank you.
I think he was trying to get us to focus our attacks on the FLUMPHs so they'd stop saying that. Yeah. Over and over they said that, over and over. It was the dull, methodic
Thank you so
chant.
much.
Dull, methodic chant, I believe it was. Methodical chant of this session. So the thing these things did was they had, 8 square range beam of some kind that paralyzed you.
Really?
If they shot you with it. They're police things. They're here to...
Non-lethal.
They just come along, paralyze you, and then later the police arrive to collect you.
Yeah.
Because the way it works is it's your dazed, slowed, and immobilized. Save ends. If you fail your save, you're just paralyzed forever
until someone
until they. Yeah, it's really easy to break the spell if you know how, because that's what the police do. They come collect you and unparalyze you, right?
Try this.
But yeah, they're paralysis hoverers.
So these things join the fight, and they're just shooting everyone. They're on no one's side.
No, they're just there to collect, and the police will deal with them.
And we never really figured out what exactly their targeting priority algorithm was. But they did tend to focus on some of us to exclusion over others. So they started shooting at us, and this was funny. As soon as they showed up, I think they shot Cricket first thing, and so she was slowed, immobilized, and dazed, and with risk of if I fail to save, I'll probably fall unconscious or something. I didn't know exactly what, but I knew this was getting worse.
Yeah.
So with my next turn, we'd had that little gem that was for locating this bootlegging operations. I pulled that out and I tossed it with a stealth check onto the nearest dead dwarf. And then I took the check that we were going to pay these criminals with, and I swallowed it. And that was my turn. So, you know, I was like, I gotta
Get rid of the evidence.
Yeah, if we're gonna get hauled in by the cops, we gotta make sure that we were just innocent tourists who happen to be walking by.
Yeah.
And it's these dwarves that had the locator gem, which would totally make sense. Fortunately, I can't remember. Did I fail that or I know
You failed it. You did really poorly at it. Yeah.
Yeah, and then but then serendipity, like, we'll try more top of our tower, shepherd, soul, star of time, was right there, and she managed to roll the Arcana check to heal me. So she was able to break the paralysis on that.
Right, because she could figure out how to break the spell. It was just kind of hard for her.
And so then the next round, the FLUMPHs decided to fire on her instead because she was able to break the thing. And so I used Guardian's Counter and I got paralyzed again. So she could fix it again. So Cricket's totally happy here because she's acting as a meat shield. It's her favorite role.
She's good at it.
But fixing it is a standard action, so that kind of sucks.
Yeah, it was distracting. But it's funny because for most of the rest of the combat, we were just taking whatever those FLUMPHs were dishing out. We weren't really shooting back at them because they had really high defenses, and there were still dwarves.
Yeah.
So we were sort of like continuing to kill the dwarves while trying to endure the FLUMPHs.
Well, and it wasn't. They hadn't decided what they were going to do because they're like the police, right? They aren't necessarily going to attack them.
That's right. We were considering going with them.
Yeah.
Yeah, getting
Like, you know,
collected because they kept saying if you haven't committed a crime, you have nothing to fear.
Yeah.
Or running away. So they focused on the dwarves, and I remember the FLUMPHs paralyzed the leader dwarf and Hank.
Yeah.
And they kept paralyzing Hank over and over and over again.
He kept saving out of it,
Nice.
if I remember correctly.
Yes, he'd always get paralyzed and he'd keep saving.
So most of the dwarves get killed at this point. I think just the leader guy and one of the...
Yeah, the rest of them were wiped out fairly
Just the
easily because there
leader
wasn't much left of them.
Yeah.
But the leader guy had a lot of hit points.
So he goes down the hole. I can't remember. Did he jump? I think he jumped. He decided he was going to run out that way or something.
Yes, because
he's going after...
there was no way he was getting out the other way. And by this time, the Ood there was a layer lower than where they were, and he like blasted away some rubble and went into like a tunnel, and so he had run away.
He was getting away, and then dwarfs, that's objective 2. They had to kill him.
And the leader dwarf decided to go after him. And so he slid down the hole and ended up engaging with Croesus and Hank.
Yeah. And so the rest of us go in pursuit. Ooh, that's a spicy one. I didn't realize.
It's a little bit spicy.
Yeah. Anyway, so
It's the spicy pierogi on it.
at this point,
Or the potato.
the boys are all down in the hole beating on this dwarf, and the girls are all up here in the corridor. And we want to get down there. We want to catch up with them. Why is it always that way? Why does it always wind up with the female characters off in some different part? It's weird.
Well, all the female characters in our party are... Well, actually, Aurora's supposed to be frontline.
Yeah.
But, I mean...
She's not a very frontline personality, though, so... Hank and Croesus are a lot more of the charge in and smash type folks.
Well, I can imagine that Croesus can teleport around. I think he probably end up teleporting down to the hole for all I know.
Yeah. And Hank's been developing some of those as well. Anyway, it actually was a bit of a challenge. We had to get past all those zones we set up to prevent the dwarves from escaping, and now they were preventing us from getting in there easily. The caltrops in particular. So we had to use some various stunts and tricks to get past the caltrops without getting slowed.
Your own things that worked against you?
Yeah, the caltrops are just a zone. Anyone that goes in there is slowed. Save ends. So, yeah. But we got past those and headed on down.
Actually, before you guys went down there, because by the time you guys got there, that dwarf was already dead. Because he hit a point where he had like 15 hit points left, and he was shooting Croesus and Hank. There's no way he was getting away because they could both get an attack of opportunity.
Yeah.
So
we wound up in a big debate over whether dwarves were civilized or not.
yes, I had the idea that they were like gross because like later they became gross, but other people had an idea that they were like evil xenophobes, but they were like noble.
Or if not noble, at least like they
have a code of honor.
They were militaristic essentially. They weren't like a band of savages. They were. Yeah.
So, in the end, we decided that what he was going to do, because he was doomed, he said he directly to the FLUMPH said, help, these criminals are murdering me. It was the first time he talked in common, because every time anyone talked in common, they were always like, just disgusted by it, and horrified by the presence of these people.
Yeah.
And then he decided to try to grab Hank and spit in his mouth. But when he did that, an attack of opportunity killed him.
Yeah.
So, because he'd earlier spit on someone. Was it Hank or Croesus? I don't remember.
Yeah, he'd done some spitting already.
Why?
Because he was mad.
Because they like.
He was mad.
They just find non-dwarves disgusting. They're just,
So,
beneath contempt.
So at this point, the dwarves are all dead, but the cops now are on our case, and we want to go after that ood. Oh yeah, we tried looting the various dwarf corpses as we pulled back, in hopes that maybe they had some looted wizard powder D that we could get off of them.
Yeah.
But no, it turns out they didn't. They hadn't taken any wizard powder D before they blew up the place. Apparently.
At least there was nothing obvious on them. They haven't had time to go through in great detail.
We did grab some packs and things like that.
I think the big thing was just the realization that if they go with them, they're going to have to answer a bunch of questions, like where are you from, and they're going to be getting more scrutiny than they did with the random get into town guys, right? Mm-hmm. They're going to be getting serious interview scrutiny on where they're from and who they are and why they're a goat person. And I didn't want that scrutiny.
Yeah.
So they started shooting down the FLUMPH, who replied with, damaging police property is a finable offense. If you damage property in the commission of a crime, your punishment will be more severe. You will be taken to the nearest law enforcement agency.
Etc. Yes.
Excellent.
So we still weren't too concerned because a finable offense, worst case scenario, we'll pay our fines and leave. But probably there's going to be a lot of bureaucracy, especially if they find out that we're time travelers from after their civilization.
That'll definitely make some complex.
They might have additional questions then, and we might have to pull Jenga blocks. Actually, this could work out in our favor, because if we fail the Jenga blocks, it'll kill the interrogator. A dragon will eat him.
Yes, Brian's basing that on the sample size of the one time that the Jenga tower fell.
Yeah. Time acts to try and prevent any changes by having dragons eat the people we talk to. So we can basically summon dragon anytime we want. We just have to run up to someone and say, your whole civilization's in danger. Go on. Just run up to someone and say, here's exactly what you have to do to survive the coming apocalypse. Go on.
Might not be a dragon, though.
Oh, it'll be a dragon. Every time we've done this, it's been a dragon. Anyway. It didn't come to that, though. We shot down the FLUMPHs, and we decided we wanted to try and catch up with that ood, because he's our only lead right now on cheap wizard powder D. I mean, if all else fails, we can go try and buy the regular kind. Unless the moment we get near that, it explodes as well. It could happen. So that was about the end of the session then, is we're going off in pursuit of the Spood. And I had to roll to induce vomiting.
I gave him a +10.
Yeah, because I'm part goat.
Why did you have to vomit?
To get my check back.
All right.
Yeah, because they swallowed it thinking, this guy's dead, but he survived. They're like, maybe we should keep all that money.
Yeah.
And I was like, that's going to be really hard. And then he's like, I'm part goat. All right.
So you succeeded.
Yep. I succeeded at my vomit check.
It's actually not that
I
hard.
think some other people asked, can I help her with that? No. Wow.
Yeah, I'm really not sure what's going on. But hey, free dwarf.
Oh crap! As if things can't just get any worse. The fuzz is here. Do we run? We didn't do anything wrong. We should just hands in the air. We should run.
Dwarves are so dumb. They're jerks. But it's fun messing with them. And beating them up. I guess I'll keep them alive, though. I guess. Fine, I won't kill them. But I'll at least jump off a cliff and teleport and kill this squid thing that's floating around trying to freeze me over and over again. Why does it keep trying to freeze me constantly? It's annoying. Stop it. Okay, I'll just kill those two. I don't feel bad about that.